Hey, Bethany.
The camera's not focused, and I don't know why. It's be blurry, apparently.
Probably your lens is probably covered with all the spring pollen.
Oh, God, as is my nose and all the rest of me.
Okay,
We were just having that discussion.
We are
Are we
live
live?
on YouTube, by the way.
Thanks,
Yes, we
Carol.
are live.
Probably covered with all the spring.
Yeah, the thing about the YouTube that's really good is that we have our own YouTube channel now, and so if faculty want to go back and watch it at a later point, they can. So
That's really nice, actually. I like the YouTube channel.
yeah,
I know.
there's
I feel
certain
rather Faculty Senate is rather hip. We're like influencers now with our own YouTube channel.
Yeah, there's several things that have really have been good improvements that we will probably keep going with, like this. This is really nice.
We should probably keep this going after the pandemic.
Yeah, because I think this is actually probably easier for our med school people than what we used to have, because that conference system used to always seem like have problems.
Yeah, my fall class, I conference, it's a graduate class for our department that's in the Springfield campus. And we always do a conference call to the other classroom, but it's so fraught with issues that I might just see if we can Zoom it from now on, because that system was way easier and way better for the students than the stupid conference call system. So who knows?
Yeah, and the great thing about the YouTube is it closed captions for the people listening, and that closed captioning, it got it so sophisticated now, it almost doesn't mess up.
No, I'm watching it on the bottom of the screen and it's fantastic.
And Marcus, I'm actually doing that through Zoom now. You can actually do live captioning now with Zoom.
Oh,
can
wow,
trigger
really?
that on. Actually live caption now, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We got a late crew today. People are
It's rough. The end of the semester is just getting rougher and rougher.
we're getting close, a month out.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Yeah.
Hey,
I just
good afternoon.
leave another meeting and then just like leave and join.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why I usually anymore, it seems like the first 2 or 3 minutes anyway, you give people time, because a lot of people are doing that, jumping between meetings.
I said, oh, I have to leave.
I know Scott and I think Eugene weren't going to be able to make it today. I know Amber, her stepmother passed away, so she's not going to be able to make it today. And Jacob is not going to be able to make it today, so it's going to be a short.
Did anybody
True,
give
anyway.
you feedback on any of the resolutions when they said they couldn't be here?
I didn't get any feedback on any of them.
So do we have a quorum where we're able to move forward?
Well, that's a good question. And if we don't, how are we going to send the agenda to the faculty senate?
Well, what's in our operating paper?
Can we do it by email or by online vote?
You know, I think, and let me pull it up. I usually have it open already, but I was working on something else when I came in. But I think we may be good, because I think it's advisory on the agenda too. So if so, we don't really have to have.
And in the end,
Let me
for at
double
least
check that.
UEPC resolutions, we can send out an email, say who was there, voted this way. If you object, send us.
No, I would think we're most, I don't know what's on our, precisely it's in our operating paper, but I would think most operating papers require at least 1/2 of the members present for a quorum. And it seems
I
like
think it's normally majority. So.
majority, and we're at that, if that is the case.
Yeah.
But if
Okay,
you want
good.
to wait a couple minutes to see if anybody else joins the
Yeah, I
call.
was just seeing if there's anything else in there, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, Joe. I just wanted to make sure, because a couple of these things
Mhm.
will obviously impact the next meeting, but also impact our timeliness of doing elections and,
Yeah.
so forth. So,
No, I want to be very practical about this kind of thing.
Yeah, it says a majority of the elected members shall constitute a quorum. That's
Okay.
what it is.
Okay, so the majority of the co-chairs plus the standing officers.
and Marcus, I didn't recall, did you say that Amber is or is not joining us?
She is not joining us.
Not, okay.
She said she wouldn't have good connection, and she's up in the Appalachian area, so.
Okay.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started. And Josh and Record is here. And first thing is the approval from the EC minutes for the March 2nd meeting, which were attached to the agenda when it went out. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
And there's a second with Joe. And are there any discussions, changes, corrections? I see none. Anybody opposed to approving? Any abstentions? Okay, so the minutes are approved. We finished our last listening learning tour. We had a makeup session, and the makeup session was well attended. We had several people that came in. The makeup session was really interesting because there was a really big variety from different programs and Med School Plus, Carbondale campus. And it was an interesting group, but good comments. It's actually one of the ones that went the longest of all of them.
Several law professors were there.
Yeah, we had a really good group.
Some administrators that couldn't make it, like Carl Berry from CTE, or I guess some of the deans who couldn't make it before went to it.
Yeah, and I expect the chancellor may talk a little bit about some of the results today when he comes and gets on with us. But they really went well, and I think the faculty, everything the faculty said, they appreciated the opportunity, and I was truly amazed how many faculty said they had never met the chancellor, and some of them had been here 20, 30 years and had never met a chancellor. So that was just crazy, but it went really well, and I was very pleased with it. I've got something, and I will run it by you guys now. I got it down. I just threw it down in the new business, but I wanted to run it by you, because all of it's going to depend. I think the RMEs that the UEPC are bringing aren't going to be controversial, so I think they're going to go pretty quick on those votes. I think the one resolution that we have coming out of the special committee is not going to be controversial, so it's going to go pretty fast, I think. But I've got a couple of groups that have done presentations for the Chancellor's Leadership Committee, and I was wanting to get at least one of them, and if possible, both of them at the beginning of our meeting on Tuesday. One of them is what they call the P20 campaign. Mm-hmm. It's dealing with mental wellness. Jamie Clark did an amazing presentation, really eye-opening, seeing the mental health issues for our students here at SIU compared to students across the nation. It floored me. And so I thought it would be good for the faculty senate to hear that. And so I want to bring her in. I'm going to check with her and see how long she actually needs. But I figure she can probably do it in 15 to 20 minutes. And then the second one was one that I've been wanting to get on our agenda, but we've had so much with the resolutions from the RMEs that we haven't had time to do a second thing. But it's the SENSE, the Students Embracing Nature, Sustainability, and Environmentalism. Mm-hmm. It's a student group. They are just doing some amazing stuff. And I thought it would be good for the faculty to hear some of the things they've got going on. And so I think they could probably get theirs done in probably also 15 to 20 minutes. So we're looking at 30 to 40 minutes. Since we don't have a packed agenda, I think it would be something we could get by with. The only thing that may take time is going to be Grant's election thing. And depending on how our discussion goes today, we may be able to look and see whether it's going to take as much time. But the rest of them are all pretty quick on things. And I'm positive in talking to the chancellor and provost that they would actually cut back on their time for these two to be presented, because they're anxious for the faculty to hear about these two groups. So is it okay? You think it's okay to reach out to those groups and see if they are willing to? Okay, I see nods.
Yeah, the health
Okay,
services.
so I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, I saw the health services presentation at Grad Council, and it was really important stuff, and just really nice to see what we are trying to do as an institution to address those matters.
It is, and what you will see is, I think the numbers will speak for themselves, but I also think that we're doing a lot more here than some other universities. So our numbers probably are inflated because we're actually doing some things. A lot of universities send their student health, mental health issues off campus to other organizations. We keep ours here to the majority and in-house. And so that's why sometimes the numbers, but it's something I think is worthwhile to see. Okay, well, we'll jump right into.
I was going to say really quick on that point. I also think it really highlights one of the strengths of this university, which is, I just the other day had to file a Saluki Cares referral. We have a really robust system. I haven't used it much because I'm usually not having to. I don't take attendance. Attendance is optional in my classes, so I don't usually track people, and I usually don't teach cert. I haven't taught in recent years the lower level core class, so I'm basically doing upper level electives almost every semester the last couple of years. So I don't generally have a problem that requires me to do a Saluki Cares, but I had to do one the other day, and they got back. They figured it out the next morning.
Wow.
That quick.
They're good. Yeah, they really are. They're on the ball. They don't waste time. So that's good to know. Bethany and Joe, do y'all have a visitor here?
We do. We have Qingfeng Ji from biochemistry.
So let's jump and get the UAPC out of the way, and then we'll come back to Grant, and because I hate the visitors to have to stay around if they don't need to.
For sure. And this will probably go very quickly. So,
yeah, we have 3 very non-controversial resolutions this month.
It's nice. It was nice, actually.
Once.
So our first, let me get my little cheat sheet out here. So our first resolution, let me get it up. Sorry, give me 1 second. Here we go. Is to add a BS in biochemistry. And this is through the School of Chemical and Biomolecular Sciences in the College of Ag, Life, and Physical Sciences. The resolution in the RME states that there's an expected increase in jobs and employment in biochemistry in the next 10 years, which facilitates a need for more majors. Students and parents frequently inquire about a biochemistry degree at open houses, and being in the sciences, this makes a lot of sense to me. And also peer institutions that have BS degrees in biochemistry have a really strong enrollment number, so we would expect the same here. There is currently a biochemistry specialization, and that specialization has strong enrollment. There are about 32 students in it. And the biochem class, Chem 350, also has large enrollment, 120 to 180. So the BS degree would be expected to have about 25 majors per year, so a lot of students. The departments of chemistry and biochemistry already teach the courses for the specialization, and that'll switch over to the major. And the School of Medicine has given support for those biochem majors to take some of the SOM courses as electives for that major. And no other arrangements or budgetary effects are anticipated for this major.
I just want to add something from the committee. The committee was floored that this wasn't already a major on this campus. We were saying there was a common consensus that universities of our size have biochemistry majors, just as a de rigueur, is just normal to have it. So we fully endorse this as a committee.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially now that there's going to be a larger interest in medicine and the biochemistry that goes with it. Any questions?
Thank you for your support.
Yes. Thank you for giving us an easy resolution. To
Very
support.
well written resolution.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments on this one?
Great. Is anyone opposed to sending this to the full faculty senate?
Nope.
Any abstentions? All right, then this will go. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then our next one is to add a minor in public and nonprofit administration. And this resolution is motivated by the need to give students a foundation for both graduate work, including programs like the MPA program here at SIU, and to give them careers or to enable them to take careers that blend private, public, and nonprofit sectors. The minor will actually utilize the core competencies from the network of schools of public policy affairs and administration. This organization accredits graduate programs, but not undergraduate programs, but they'll be using that core competency for assessment for this minor. There are existing courses that will be used from the management and the hospitality, tourism, and event management programs. And they've confirmed that these courses exist and they are going to be offered annually. And in addition to that, there will be 3 new courses that will be taught by existing faculty. However, the RME states that no additional resources or budgetary effects will be needed for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we do not have someone here for this today, but I'm happy to try and answer questions.
Okay, so the committee, when we met, we were, again, very supportive of this resolution. We also felt that this was something that would flow naturally from the reorganization efforts a few years ago, that when the MPA program was moved out of the Department of Political Science and into the school, into the business, the College of Business, that there would be further. This is another example of many we've seen this year of how new RMEs are flowing because of these new, I hate to use the word synergies, but that is the word it seems to be the word that's in my head at the moment. The new partnerships that emerge out of, that have started to emerge out of reorg. So we were, again, very supportive of this.
Any questions? All right, anybody opposed to sending this to full faculty senate? Any abstentions? All right, this one will go. And the last one is probably my favorite ever because it is just such a no-brainer. So this is to add an undergraduate certificate in event planning and management. So hospitality, tourism, and event management already has a professional development sequence that they started in 2013, but does not, at that point, did not meet IBHE standards for a certificate, undergraduate certificate. However, IBHE has changed those requirements and which allows this professional development sequence to be eligible for a level 1 certificate. So basically nothing changes. It's the same program. It's just going to be allowable for those students to receive a certificate for that. So no arrangements or budgetary effects, no faculty affected, that sort of thing. So, any questions? Anybody opposed to sending this to full faculty?
No.
Any abstentions? All right, this will go as well. And that concludes UAPC business for today.
Thank you very much. And y'all have done a lot of these this year.
We have.
Next year apparently is going to be just as bad as what Lizette is telling us.
Yeah. All right, Grant, we'll jump to you in elections.
Yeah, one quick though report from grad council, because I attended that, of course, last week. They had, of course, the presentation that Marcus is going to be bringing to us at Faculty Senate and concerning, supporting our students in terms of mental health and other areas. But then the other thing that continues to be brought up, they do not have a special committee on reorganization because our UAPC basically handles what 3 of their committees ultimately do. So I think it's their Education Policies Committee is a smaller committee that's reviewing all of these. And what constantly is coming up, and this is a skipping record, I realize by now, but it's still this constant conversation about what is a school,
Right.
Plain and simple. And it gets a little bit touchy in those conversations, and I understand kind of why, because when faculty are making those questions, I think sometimes there's the feeling of, are we attacking programs? Are we attacking the significance or the importance of these? And so I'm hoping this conversation is probably going to continue. And I'm hoping that what we're able to do as faculty to support each other, to just kind of have an idea of what are those parameters? Just, plain and simple, so that we can be proactive on that instead of a case by case reactive to that.
Yeah.
I still don't know that to the extent that we're going to get guidance from the administration on this matter. I don't know, but just kind of a heads up, where, who knows? I don't know where this is going to lead us.
On that point, this came up actually last Thursday at the Makeup Chancellor's Listening Tour, because we were talking about where do we go moving on from reorg, with a lot of bruised faculty feelings across campus about how it was done, the reasons why. If you were reorged early, you got invariably put into a mammoth school. If you protested and hung out for a better deal, you got a better deal in the end, it seemed, generally speaking. And now we're dealing with, last month's faculty senate meeting, for example. I was probably a bit clumsy in how I asked my question, but you can definitely see the furor of when I asked the question. It felt like I was attacked. The person in physics felt like I was attacking physics when I really wasn't. I was just saying, why is a school of 6 being allowed to go forward? So I think we're going to have problems going forward, because there is now what we've replaced are departments of varying sizes with schools of varying sizes.
Yeah, and I don't obviously mean to belabor the point, because like I said, I'm a skipping record when I constantly bring this up, but I don't know how to, but I do want us to continue to encourage the administration and we can work in conjunction with that through shared governance, but kind of have a plan for what that looks like. Reorg has been a little bit of a hot potato that nobody kind of wants to touch, because it was started before so-and-so was in, a position, and I completely understand and respect that. But so anyway, just a heads up, just to keep that on our radar. But related to reorg, of course, is how we're going to handle elections. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to go a little bit backwards in terms of presenting this proposal, because it was really challenging to kind of get the language on this proposal right, in terms of not getting too lost into the weeds on some of these items. I just have here brought up also, of course, the committee. We had I think there might have been one we had one committee member who is not on faculty senate, and I think that was just kind of a mistake that had happened through the process. But we had April Teskey, Stacy McKinney, and of course Marcus and Amber were able to join us as well. So great, thank you to that committee for helping get this resolution put together. Really, we had a couple of meetings thinking through kind of the parameters of this and what's the best way to, what makes the most sense and what's also an appropriate way to present this to faculty. What you have here on the last 2 pages of the resolution is kind of really a visualization of what it looks like in practice, meaning the language of the resolution with the whereas statements and then therefore be it resolved statements really kind of come into play. So I want to highlight 2 of those where it kind of makes it a little bit challenging and where there's not, I think that we're trying to find a resolution that is the most ideal because there's not going to be one that is completely ideal. What you have, and of course, in the left-hand column, if you haven't already seen this, of course, is what our current structure looks like and what dictated our 2020 elections last spring. What you see on the right-hand column, though, is what we're proposing in this resolution. And the reason why I did this sort of side by side is to give some illustrations of what we're dealing with.
Before you move forward, the first part, like Grant, like on the reorganize, where's the physics?
So what this represents, that's an excellent question. And so I was going back and forth on how to represent this. I was going to put in our names.
Oh, okay. I see.
These represent our current senators.
You put our fields. You put our.
I put everyone's fields instead of names because I wanted you to be able to trace where that person currently will go.
I see. Got
Physics is not on here. Physics, there is a grad council member from.
Okay. I see. I understand.
We do not have a grad council member from physics in faculty senate currently.
Yeah, but that's not the ones, the units you were talking about.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
So chemistry is.
Yeah, and I should probably, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something I need to probably first and foremost present to the faculty senate, the larger body with this, because it's not confusing. Like for instance, where it says under the current or the previous College of Agricultural Sciences forestry opening in 2021, that does not mean that we need to find a forestry person to replace the forestry opening. Instead, we have one opening. Well, there are 2 seats in the old College of Agricultural Sciences. and so
So
forth.
would it help to put both
Okay.
our name, the current faculty senator's name and the field they're from, or?
I think that maybe if I just make that clarification, because I did go back and forth on that, Joe, but I don't want people to pour over who,
No, I understand.
who, just to kind of see where things are kind of landing.
Yeah, it's
This is
complicated.
ultimately the unit where we are currently representing, and where that unit will
I see.
land or has already landed in reorg.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
No, excellent clarification, and it's a great reminder where I honestly need to say that first and foremost when presenting this to the full body.
Mhm.
I'm going to give you two examples. They're somewhat on the extremes, but I think that they kind of illustrate where going as is usual or trying to use an old structure, what we had in 2020 for elections, is not going to work as well, or is going to be even less ideal than what we're proposing. One example is a college that I was in, and then another one I'll give you an example of is the College of Liberal Arts.
Yep.
So I'm going to start with the college where I was in, and now I'm of course just in the School of Education. The previous College of Education and Human Services, if we were to attempt, and as you can see here, we have 3 representatives currently, okay? I'm the one from Curriculum and Instruction. Social work, there's an opening right there. Rehab, there is not an opening. However, these 2 people are leaving because they're no longer in the College of Education. So as you can see here in the newer structure, the School of Ed should only have 1 seat. If we were to attempt to have elections that just replaced what is in the old structure, it then becomes a misrepresentation as far as how our units are basically adequately, represented, for lack of a better term. What I mean by that is this rehab colleague will be over in Health and Human Services, and already is. The social work colleague also is. But if we were to say that we're going to replace this opening right here, then we're going to have 2 sort of quasi School of Education seats, and that's an inaccurate representation.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have people, that's why I kind of kept it with, these positions where people are landing. And another example, the College of Liberal Arts, the current College of Liberal Arts, what's proposed to be the social sciences, there are currently 8 seats that the College of Liberal Arts has.
Mhm.
And it's not finalized, but what is, as far as where people are going to be remaining, what might be in the College of Social Sciences, here are 4 of our colleagues, but we have 2 more here as well in English and History. Joe, you might suspect who that is. So they are, and just in the order that they're listed in we have 2 extra seats. In other words, the current College of Liberal Arts has 8 seats, but as you know, we have programs that have already left. In fact, applied psychology and clinical psychology are already out of that program or out of that college.
Criminology, economics, theater.
Exactly. So from what is it?
Yeah.
2 departments?
My dean is not going to have any programs to be supervising at this point. Everybody's leaving.
Yeah. So in the new structure, you're using the the Huntington Hill method, correct, Marcus? I think that's the name of
Yeah,
Marcus
that's it.
helped us do that Excel sheet for that. In the new structure with the new metrics, there are 4 seats that will be in whatever it is that if these 4 or 5 or so programs are together, they would be allotted 4 seats. So we want to leave that alone though. So in other words, if we were to replace, for example, this opening, and of course, this person is leaving anyway. If we were to try to maintain the 8-seat structure, that's like giving double representation of what's going to happen. But we acknowledge that, and you'll see this in the resolution, there are 2 seats where there are going to be 2 extra senators until there's natural attrition where that gets adjusted to 4 seats. Okay.
Mhm.
So that kind of gives you a sense of playing through. So as a result, what we're proposing will end up having 2 additional senators. We ended up finding out that we have 37 currently because there was I guess in communication, there was a little bit of an error, but both people said love to be on faculty senate and nobody wanted to say, well, so-and-so, so it's fine. And in our operating paper, it says we'll have, around 36. So that gives us leeway. So we do have an extra senator right now anyway, but we're going to have 2 additional senators because we have 2 extra ones in liberal arts or what might be the social sciences and humanities.
Mhm.
So those are just kind of like some specific scenarios. And I wanted to give you that as context to then talk through what is actually written in the resolution.
Mhm.
The top part, as you probably have already seen, is just kind of like context. Operating information, for instance, a couple of things I'll highlight specifically, normally will consist of 36 members, normally, right? Well, right, this year is not a normal year. And also I want to point out that no elected member shall be deprived of a seat. And that'll make sense when I talk about the College of Liberal Arts here in a moment, why we will have additional senators for a little bit of time.
Mhm.
Then I give the context of the updates as far as 5 of those 6 school or colleges have been approved.
Mhm.
27 of 32 proposed schools have been approved. So we are really that far into reorganization. So then, of course, context, we do not have an accurate representation. Some initial ideas were to maybe delay the 3-year term elections, but if we do that, we're going to have a lot of people leaving. And so we're going to have roughly 10 people leaving. So we're going to have fewer, if we were to not have elections, we're going to have fewer than 30 representatives across campus. Okay. So that seemed less than, or for sure less than ideal. We also talked about, there's the opportunity where we could, because we're still in the middle of reorganizing, we could maybe have the upcoming elections just be for a 1-year term. But that's not ideal, because then we're going to end up where we have years where over 2/3 of the Senate, the faculty Senate body, is being replaced.
No.
That's a lot of a lot of turnover, a lot of turnover. And I don't think that for just institutional memory purposes and so forth, that's beneficial for us.
No.
And then as you see, I can point out here, replacing senators for colleges that had existed basically further misrepresents our faculty Senate body. I gave you the School of Ed example, what used to be the College of Ed, and I gave you the COLA example as well. So then in terms of our resolutions, I divided it up into 3 ways. One is to recognize that we're using acknowledge the new schools as part of our design, and those are listed here. Schools and colleges, because School of Education is new, but we're not a part of a college anymore. Then I separated, so we're recognizing that as part of our metrics in this resolution. We're also recognizing that we have some units that have not been impacted as severely as others. School of Medicine, School of Law, all of that, non-tenure track, that really stays the same. And you can see in the chart down below, it's pretty across the board. Those are the easy ones as far as like figuring out elections. But then I think that this is a vital resolution part of it as well. We also want to point out that we are in full support of and acknowledging it's not ideal, but we will have 2 additional senators using this approach. They're in the College of Liberal Arts. And then as I point out, of course, support the representation for this unit being adjusted through the normal election process. So in other words, natural attrition will then eventually get that number of 6 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
That is essentially what we are proposing. Informally, I would get feedback just saying, let's just go forward as we were, let's not change anything. But I think as hopefully what is illustrated, and I honestly thought about that idea as well, but when I looked at the side-by-side, I looked at the potential misrepresentation, it seemed like a far less than ideal resolution than what we're proposing here. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Yes, I think this is very sensible and moderate what you're proposing, and I will give it my full endorsement, even though I'm in a college that is affected most severely by the reapportionment. I guess the question I have, and you may not have an answer, this might be something to have Josh dig into, or somebody with access to what previously happened in the faculty senate over the decades. But it's long struck me that various units on this campus have either been overrepresented or underrepresented, even when we were college structures. And for example, it always floored me that, Marcus, you were the only representative of the College of Business. There seems to be more faculty over in College of Business than merit just only one representative. So it then leads me to think that the faculty senate wasn't reapportioned for several decades. Be impressionistic.
No, actually, it's every year.
Oh, every year.
Yeah, every year, Joe. Every year they do the Hunting Hill apportionment formula.
So they do it every year.
And so every year it determines, and that's why it has in there that due to reapportionment, we're not going to pull someone out that is already in the Senate, and which is what's happening this year. But every year they calculate this, because I talked to Jim Wall about it, and I know he's done this the last 3 years at least. And so, and if you look back, you'll see, and Josh can look back.
So then how do you explain that your college was underrepresented for many years?
We don't have enough faculty to have more than one.
Really? Okay. I guess I'm on the other side of campus. My impression is that you have more faculty than I guess you do. Okay.
Yeah, in the College of Business right now, we've got probably total 20-something faculty. Well, no, we just got our new people in, so we're probably up close to 50 now with the econ and all the other ones coming in. But yeah, it's not a big college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, you got to also remember, NTTs are pulled out and put in a pool by themselves.
Right.
So any NTT faculty, and we have a lot of NTT faculty, are put into an NTT pool.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that.
So I want to just really quickly, oh, sorry, Li Ching, I think there you go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to follow up because the question I have is about the NTT. They are independent unit. It says based on the previous, the current, operating paper, it says it has 6 seats. And
right.
because during the revision times, I was wondering because the number of NTT increases. So we may need to allocate them instead of 6, maybe we need to increase to 7 or 8. That's where we are in the process of revising it, because we need to know how many of them and what would be a reasonable number to assign.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point.
That's
and what
one
may
point.
happen there is, I don't know that we can get that taken care of in time for elections, but it would be a great resolution for our governance committee to tackle because it deals directly with our operating paper.
Okay, yeah, that's what we were looking at that. So
this is an election process, which
Yes.
is pretty open-ended to an extent in our operating paper. But what you're pointing out is an excellent point, but something that would be a change to the operating paper.
Yeah.
Governance committee could certainly tackle that.
Yeah, that's what we were going to, but of course that will be a separate thing. And then so that's why, in a sense, maybe the number will be increased than like 36. That's
Sure.
what I was trying to say. But yeah, I don't have any particular questions regarding what you have here. The only minor things is are we going to change after 3 years? We'll change back to the normal, or it's just like this is one time?
2 years.
2 years, okay.
I just ended my first year on the faculty senate, so I'm assuming that
Basically, it will take care of itself, though. It
Yeah.
will take care of itself over each year, because we have some rolling off and some rolling back on. So it will take care of itself.
it'll
Yeah.
fully get back to 36 in 2 years because Patrick is also in his first year.
I see.
But
Yeah,
with that said, if there's a change in the operating paper may change everything and may say we need more than 30, or we need, and also with the Hunting Hill method, that just to explain that a little bit, it is only applied to the tenure track faculty. It's not applied to the NTT, because the NTT is one pool, whereas the tenure track faculty actually is 9 or 10 pools that it's all together. So.
But one thing, just for context related to later on, like number of senators, keep in mind, there are far fewer of us as faculty members than there were years ago when we had 36 faculty senators. In other words, I don't know about you guys, but it's for those of us who are like on this call who are willing to serve, we're kind of getting serviced to death.
Yes, we are.
And so it's great. It's, but I mean, well, it's not so great to get service to death, but it's great that everyone is. So there is a smaller and smaller and smaller pool of us
Sure.
that we can pull from for this. So, we had 36 in the past when we had 22,000 students on this campus.
Sure.
And far more faculty members.
Sure.
You still have 36, now 37. When there is a much, much smaller. So I would be curious, I don't know what the ratio is or what that kind of like breaks down to, but so anyway, just to keep that in mind, it's great to kind of increase the number of faculty members, but if we were to add NTT, we might reduce the number of tenure track faculty? Just some thoughts. I don't know, just some things to consider.
No, that's very, I think so. And I think I would throw another one to consider. Our meetings tend to last 2 full hours. And so in terms of a governance, the faculty senate being of appropriate size that we can actually get our business done. I don't think we want to go much higher than the current number that we have, which is 36 or somewhere in that ballpark, because any additional members, we're going to have longer meetings to accommodate. We're going to have
Okay.
larger sizes to accommodate. So I just think the size we have is probably appropriate for our university.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are great conversations that will definitely come into areas of governance. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns about the current resolution?
I just wanted to voice my support. I think, if you're looking at the suite of options, do nothing, change everything, or do what you can and let attrition sort of handle the rest. I think that is the best middle ground you can find for this. And so I fully support this resolution.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? I guess we can go to a vote here in a moment. Marcus, do you want me to call the vote, or you want to do that process?
If there's no other discussion, anybody opposed to taking this to the Senate? Any abstentions? And seeing none, we'll take it to the Senate. Thank you very much, Grant.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And we'll have the members of the election committee there as well. So there'll be a lot of people who can who had been in those meetings who can field questions concerning, what we're trying to figure out. Great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, reorganization. We've got one that should be coming to the faculty senate. If you're on here and you haven't done the poll for when we can meet this week, we've got Wednesday and Thursday on the poll, so be sure and vote on that so I can set up the meeting as quickly as possible. But and Joe, you need to make sure at least you or Ting's there, and I know he's going to be gone. So
I was going to say I'm probably going to be the one doing it because Ting.
Okay, yeah, he's going to be gone. I know.
Ting wrote.
So it's the School of Africana and Multicultural Studies is the one that's coming forward that we'll probably have at the faculty senate. And actually, that's our last full one that we've got. There's only a few units that are left out there. Communication still has not landed anywhere. And I just got word yesterday afternoon from Lizette that we will be seeing the one for the automotive and aviation schools going into Health and Human Services College. She hopes we will get it in the next week or so. If so, I just wanted to check with the executive committee if there's any problem in bringing that one, if we get it and get it done, to the second April meeting. There is a second April meeting where it's the half meeting from last year's faculty senate and half meeting from next year's faculty senate. And if we get that one, we could possibly get it done at that first half because it's probably not going to be controversial. The units are all in support of it, so I don't think it's going to be. So that's okay. We'll try to do that.
That's been the source of much controversy of what college they should be in. That they've constantly gone back and forth.
Yeah, but I think they want to go where it's ended up.
Well, then that's good.
We'll see. We'll see when it comes in.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all that's going on right now with the reorganization. So it's getting close, and hopefully for everybody's sake we'll get past this, because I know the chancellor, and he may talk about this when he comes on in a few minutes. I know the chancellor is talking to the consultants about coming in and doing some of the things that we have asked him to do about looking at the overall process and where we're at and what we can do moving forward to make things work better. So I know he's talked to a couple of consultants and they're making the decision now about that.
Marcus, can I jump in here really quick on something that I emailed you privately about, which I think perhaps the broader
go ahead.
The broader committee here can help me with. It is the reorg is mostly done, as you said, and I'm wondering, a lot of our new schools, especially the later ones, we just had a meeting last month with the associate provost about whether we wanted a permanent school director or a provisional one. And we are, I guess, going to be thinking about operating papers. And I'm wondering, since operating papers have been a bugaboo cross campus, even with schools that have existed for many, many years, they still don't have approved operating papers, as far as I'm aware. I'm wondering what leadership role could the faculty senate take in the years ahead? This committee will sunset, but what kind of leadership role can we take to really help faculty shepherd, get ourselves on the other side of the operating paper quagmire that we seem to be in?
Deadline.
So just to give you context, so gosh, back in the day when I was secretary and then I was off faculty senate for a year, but that was a big part of the discussion where maybe that's governance committee who can help with that. Maybe it's some language, maybe it's a quasi template of sorts. Because like I'm on human subjects committee, so we just redid our operating paper. And one thing that was really critical is to help people understand the difference between an operating paper and operating procedures manual. You know, you can really, you know, with operating, so that helped a lot, because you kind of do get lost in the weeds of trying to put in an operating paper, you know, the second Tuesday or the third, you know, what, you know, like that level of detail that just doesn't need to be there. And I know that was revealing for us in human subjects, because we did kind of get lost in the weeds sometimes on those discussions. And so if there's language, parameters, guidelines, it's not to say that it's a one size fits all by any stretch of the imagination. But if there's language or there's things that other programs or units are kind of problem solving and figuring out, what if we are kind of a quote unquote or a quasi clearinghouse of sorts, or who knows, whatever, that can help facilitate like
that is my, that's precisely where I'm going with the
campus.
question. That's exactly where I was going with it, because we are the one agent that is empowered to represent faculty across the university. So it seems to behoove, it almost seems like it's in our mission to help faculty with this, especially since I'm just talking personally here, you know, my school is just being formed in July. I don't want to be spending the better part of the next 2-3 years fighting about what goes into an operating paper. That's like a profound waste of my productive time. And I'm sure it's true for all of us, you know, and so it's like, so I think if there can be best practices that are being used elsewhere by faculty, I'm sure most operating papers are pretty straightforward. I mean, I would think.
Yes. So I want to use our School of Biological Sciences as an example. We have been a school for what, 2 years now, Robin? Something like that, 2 years. And we still haven't settled on an operating paper. And that's not because of any issues with the papers. I think the committee we put together to do it is going to be very, very capable. But really, it's just finding the time, finding someone to organize it, and then you know, having some pressure from above for us to do that would be
leadership on our side too.
So what was that, Robin?
It's a leadership for our school. It's definitely leadership is an issue as well. I mean,
Sure.
actually, we have a pretty good draft.
We do.
We haven't touched it in 2 years. So, because there's no motivation, right? There's
No
no.
motivation, right? Because it is it's a time suck. It doesn't do anything productively.
Maybe
But
Can I add something?
I do think there's a huge issue is we're hiring faculty and there's
Okay.
And the
areas
dean.
by operating paper their tenure lines, right? For example, and then you could add on graduate students and issues with degrees and all that stuff. So operating papers are pretty important, at least legally, at least for those faculty coming in, for example. On tenure tracks and such.
I'd recommend that the Faculty Association is already taking a role in this as well, because operating papers are not straightforward faculty senate responsibility. They involve collective bargaining issues as well. And so it would behoove us to coordinate, cooperate, share information with the FA on this. In particular, as people have already mentioned, you know, units that actually want to be together are having a heck of a time trying to come up with operating papers. And a lot of that is the administration themselves don't seem to know what they want in operating papers. And they're sending a lot of mixed signals or no signals at all. And, you know, even in political science, when we tried to redo ours several years ago, didn't go anywhere. I don't mean to disagree, but I think that operating papers are not going to be a straightforward process at all. And whether we don't want to spend 2 or 3 years doing it, I don't think that's our decision to make. This is going to be, again, the cynic in me, based on the signals so far of units that have already been together for months, if not a year, they're not making progress. And this is going to take a long time. And The more we can serve as a clearinghouse or assist, I'm all for it, because right now
It's not happening.
it's a mess.
Yeah.
And as you say, incentive wise, there's
none.
no reason. There is no
There's
reason to
no
serve on any of
incentive.
these.
That's
And
a
there's
good-
no timeline. There is
Yeah.
no deadline by which this needs to be done. So
Mhm.
there's no hammer on this to get us to get it done. So
Yeah.
a lot of these are going to go to arbitration. This is going to be, I don't think the administration has thought this through at all.
Scott,
And it's going to be a
that's-
mess.
That's an excellent point. And so I wonder if, because like I was hired in 2007 and I asked about the operating paper and like, well, it's in revisions. It finally got finished 2 years ago and then has been on the table on hold. So
I
I wonder, in the past, I remember Faculty Senate, we used to always have Dave Dalala give reports as well. I mean, is it something where, we're asking every month, what's the status of operating papers? Who's gotten those completed? I mean, Scott, do you feel like that would potentially help us monitor, be part of shared governance of that process? And it's constantly, all the administrators are hearing at every single meeting, here's where we are with operating papers. And to your point, Scott, it then becomes hopefully pretty glaring when it's like nothing to report, nothing's been done. That alone, maybe in the minutes, is maybe that lovely little nudge.
Yeah, I agree. I think their feet need to be held to the fire, because this is what they wanted and they want to do it this way. But people I know departments that are together, they wanted to be together with other departments, and they're still struggling to come up with operating papers because they're not getting feedback. They're not getting direction. They're not being told what sort of components administration want in the new operating papers. It's just radio silence or conflicting messages. And unfortunately, I agree. We ought to push this at all opportunities, because I don't even think the administration is on the same page themselves with what
So
they want.
do you have a problem? I'm sitting there thinking, Ann and I talk quite frequently. Maybe I will talk to Ann about this from the FA standpoint, and maybe Ann and I can maybe meet with Dalala and Mira and say, here's concerns that we have, and we want to make sure the units get the appropriate operating papers and get them as quickly as possible. And then we could do something like Grant says, and we can say, we're going to ask for an update on this at each of our Faculty Senate meetings from the Provost office.
Instead of
Something sounds good?
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
I think I agree with that, because what happened, I think that the operating paper, it should be in the office of APAA.
Yes.
That's what it is. We should be like a read provisional or something, because I am serving in the national, like ACS, American Chemical Society, the entire society. We have more than tens of thousands students, members. We, the committee, have a set of standard, like a kind of guidelines for the local sections to change or revise their operating paper. So voting format, all the things, but it has to be from APAA. Not only for new schools, we had the same experience as Grant had. Our department operating paper, we changed. Department of all members proved it. We went to the APAA, still is not proved. So there's a lack of a general guideline from APAA. And then maybe FAA can come, can counter-proof or whatever it is, but they need to have this. We need to ask them, at least urge the administration to get this high priority, because otherwise we don't have a guideline, and then these things will be a mess. I agree with that,
I
but
think,
it has to be APAA.
yeah, totally. As a result of me asking questions every month about enrollment, Mir has been sending me spreadsheets. So I know from that example that if we ask questions about operating papers, at some point somebody will start sending you things.
Probably I will ask, because the governance committee really needs to have this. Yeah, I will start to.
And to Joe's point earlier, maybe if we do help in connection, because you're absolutely spot on, Scott, again, about like the FA helping us with those, minding our P's and Q's on that. But if we could have some language that we post or that we share that helps other units expedite their process of getting their papers approved, I would imagine that could be very appealing for the administration as well, because they're not, they're seeing similar language, each time, that are taking care of maybe the smaller, general details. But then, when we need to have some more, different specifics for whatever, tenure or what have you by our units, of course, we'll vary and depart on that. But maybe if we could have some common language that we're helping in kind of that clearinghouse sort of fashion.
A common format throughout so that you see the things in the same sections. Section 3 is tenure and promotion or whatever. Just make sure it's sort of common.
University. We're just going to have a better governed university at the unit level if we have a general standard template for the non-controversial things that are common across every unit. I think that's everybody's best interest. I can't imagine there being any opposition to that.
I have to go lecture. I'll see you all.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Good point, Joe. I'm glad you brought that up. Scott, do you have anything on committees? I know Hugh Ting sent a quick report. Didn't think y'all were going to be here, but.
Yeah, just one quick issue. Last week, we received a request from the Chancellor's office regarding the strategic planning, system-wide strategic planning committee. They needed another representative for a subcommittee on faculty and staff satisfaction. And so last week, the Committee on Committees solicited volunteers. We received 6 nominations for the position, voted and selected Deborah Pender to serve on that committee. So I'd like to offer that up to the EC for approval and confirmation next week by the full faculty senate, and open for any questions or comments.
I will say I appreciate y'all getting to that quickly. They wanted it yesterday, and y'all did it almost the day before. Y'all were quick on that, but that's a good turnout.
Full disclosure, I should receive absolutely 0 credit. This was all Yi Ting who did it. I was out of town for a number of days, and he took care of all of it. I am simply here to report on all the work that Yi Ting did and to take credit for it, and to finalize it. But yes, I will relay that to him because he deserves it all. Thanks, Marcus.
That sounds great.
And thank you all.
Thank you.
Budget committee, Jacob said he didn't have anything, and so we're good to go there. Governance, Li Cheng.
Yeah, we don't have anything except we're still struggling with the seats. How do we partition those 36 seats by looking at each school, how many faculty they have and how many more NTTs, and how do we do that? Hopefully we'll figure out something.
So yeah, I guess the operating paper changes for the faculty senate are going to carry over into next year. Yeah. Faculty status and welfare. Robin left. He didn't have anything before he left, so I don't think there's anything from that committee.
Marcus, did you pass on that email to Robin or to faculty status and welfare, the email that we had received about workplace environment?
I don't think I did, Grant. I have to look that one back up. That was a specific individual
question. Sure if it was an FA issue, but then you had responded and saying that this would be an opportunity for faculty status and welfare to take that on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I may have done that. I'll double check.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's one of those areas that's also a joint responsibility of both associations. Committee
reports for each of the committees. You'll need to start working on your committee reports. Looking at our procedures, and Josh has got the procedures there in the office, but they aren't actually, the committee reports aren't actually due until I think the summer, the July meeting. But if you can get them submitted, and I know you probably want to get them out of the way while you're still a little bit fresh in your mind. But start working on your committee reports so we can get them submitted and get them to the office and get them together for the faculty senate to see.
And
Is
Marcus,
Is
I
there
wonder
a
when it's
template?
appropriate, just a reminder, because remember at the beginning of this year when we were debating on whether or not to start a separate kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion
Mhm.
ad hoc committee, we decided not to, and instead we would infuse that in all of our committees. So I know budget, they've like totally, sprinted with that opportunity with, a lot of the work that Jacob has been doing and looking at our, salary and equity in that. So I don't know, to the extent maybe just at full Senate, just kind of remind everybody who's on those committees that in the report, the activities that they've maybe been doing in that area, since we did not, have a standalone committee, and or suggestions that they have moving forward where we can address that,
Okay, I will,
I know there's
I'll
the
put
need
together an email to the EC, so that all the committees will see it, and I will specify the things that are required by the policy manual and also reiterate that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Who's
I
our
know-
target
yeah.
audience for this? Who reads these reports? Is it the future committee co-chairs? Is it
Institutional knowledge.
institutional knowledge? It's sort
They're
of
archived.
goes into a filing cabinet somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, and we're in the process of getting everything in the filing cabinets online as much as possible. So things like that will be archived and people will be able to search it. I know when I got faculty senate president last year, I looked at about 10 different faculty senates and went and looked at their different things they did and ideals, and just because it's good to see what other universities are doing in their faculty senates. And so it's good to have it archived like that where people can come and look at it.
Okay.
All right, well, we're to the 1 o'clock hour. I see Lizette has joined us and she's representing Mirror today, and I see the chancellor is logging in. So we hit that just about perfect. So we'll let the chancellor get logged in here.
As usual, I show up to everything 5 or 10 minutes early.
No, I think it was, we were having a conversation about operating papers and how to have a more structured approach to having schools create new ones. And so I think it was opportune that you were over listening into that.
And Joe, you may want to actually start off with that question to the both of them about maybe approaches to that.
I think I will. So, the concern that I raised, I'm in a brand new school that's only going to be formed in July 1. I know informally through talking to Bethany, who's my co-chair, that she's been in a school that's been in existence for a few years now. New operating papers scare me because of the amount of time and effort for very marginal return, it seems like, with these. And so I would like to have, I'm going to probably start asking this question, or somebody else on the faculty senate is going to start asking this question almost every month. What kind of templates are out there? What kind of guidance are given to faculty on how to get operating papers? And then what's a reasonable time period for this to be actually completed and ratified, so that way we can all move on with our lives and govern, have an effective university-wide governance structure that, is effective and commonsensical, and that it's in all of our best interest to have that. So that's just sort of the concern / question that I raise.
And Joe, what you were also pointing out is like we can have an update on the status. So I don't know if that's, for example, we get, report through what's happening, through Dean's Council, where deans are, presenting where they are in terms of the status for their operating papers, but just that we have an idea of where we are as a campus and moving that process. Because we were sharing horror stories about operating papers past, and we want to just ensure that we're not, recreating those nightmares.
Right, and the context for this question is now that reorg is basically wrapping itself up. It's now the next stage of the journey. That we've reorganized this campus into 32 proposed schools. Now, how do we get 32 operating papers done? And how do we, okay, so that's my question / comment.
Of course, I'm going to defer to see if the chancellor has something to say on it, and then I can provide some additional comments.
Yeah, so I'm just joining, so I have no idea what the first part of that was, but I'll try and give you at least where I think we are, and then Lizette, feel free, just jump right in. I'm almost interested too, but we have been working on securing a consultant. Let me start there. As I mentioned, we need to do some debrief work on the academic reorg, bad. I know that there's a lot of folks that myself and Dr. Odom have talked to in the faculty ranks on the listening and learning calls. Still some emotion there. There's still some concern. So, you know, we don't want to get too excited with thinking that we're wrapping up the academic reorg, because I think the work is just going to be starting in terms of what we look like today versus what we look like before the academic reorganization. Some areas are the same, some are drastically different. Now there's, you know, we have some that were set a certain way financially. They had areas move outside of them and some move inside. So we want to know, you know, what did they look like financially before the academic reorganization? What do they look like today? You know, and then most importantly, you know, did we achieve our ultimate goal in the academic reorg? Right? You know, and what was the goal? You know, how do we assess that now? And so the consultant we're working with, or going to work with, gave us a really quick presentation about a week ago and blew me away. And we're working now just to, I mean, the things that they can extrapolate, things they can pull up, the IPEDS data, things they're using, programs and people. I think it's going to be very helpful to answer some of these questions about, now that we have reorged, you know, what do we look like as compared to maybe other doctoral research universities? What does the staffing levels, tenure track, non-tenure track, you name it, staffing members in those areas. It's going to take a pretty broad look at, you know, what we look like today as compared to maybe some other similarly situated universities. And so, I think, Joe, to your point, I think that will help us kind of chart a path towards, you know, if we are where we should be, and if not, you know, how do we eventually get there? And I think an outside party is probably more useful than trying to do something internal, because there's a bit of a, you know, again, emotion, there's some trust, some hurt feelings. So if we can get an outside eye to take a look at it, you know, maybe it's a little more believable than us administratively just trying to say, here's what we think it looks like today. And I've got some quick assessments of areas that have already made the switch or made the change. So I've got a financial profile from Judy she put together for me that shows what they look like pre and post academic reorg. And as you can imagine, there are some areas that they took on more students, right? And so they don't necessarily have the resources or the structure in place to handle some of those students. There's some areas that gave up some students, right? So, you know, we've got a mixed bag across a few different areas already. It's not an apples to apple deal. It's not a pre and a post, hey, you look exactly the same. It's not. It changed even when we think it didn't change. In some cases, it's actually going to cost us more money for the academic reorg. So if there was ever a way for it to be kind of an efficiency project, in some areas it's not turning out to be that way. It actually is turning out to be more of a cost that we may have to incur going forward. So, you know, again, early data, but had some suspicions. That's why I requested it, so we could really see. And that is still being worked through. Lizette, I forget the person's name over in your area, but she is putting together, it's the accounting folks in the academic affairs and working with Judy. But again,
Cheryl Reinhardt.
Okay, yeah, that's an inside piece. Again, it's not something that, again, back to trust. And so we're going to let the consultant look at all of that information and then make their own mind up about consulting us on where they think we are. Because I'm trying to take our piece out of this. So we not that you would accuse us, but you know, it's a little easier when we can have a third party kind of look at it and give us some feedback.
It'll be really helpful and fascinating to see the metrics that are used, you know, to evaluate that. So as a quick kind of anecdote, you know, Bethany and Joe co-chair our UEPC, you know, they're the ones who are bringing the RMEs to us. And their comment was, you know, that they're seeing so many new RMEs with new programs. And Lizette has, of course, been working with them and has commented to them that we're going to see even more next year. So that, you know, I know it's a Hallmark card word to say synergy, and it's overly used, but, you know, is, you know, to what extent
Partnerships, the P word.
right, but, you know, to the extent that that's a metric, because, you know, versus, you know, cost, for, you know, or in addition to cost, in addition to, you know, I don't know that we know if we've, you know, gained more students as a result of reorg or any of that, but, you know, so our RME is a metric of, you know, of this and so forth. So that'll be super helpful for us to then continue to learn what is being used to define success in this matter.
Yeah, right? And they I mean, it's so elaborate, the systems that they're using and the data sets, the places they're pulling information from, how we compare to other universities in the state. Just the naming of programs and how that's netted more students at some universities is very surprising. When you look at that and you go, wow, University of Illinois changed the name of one of their programs. They went up 385 students. It's just that quick. So they're looking at they've got access to, feels like everything, but I think it's going to be useful when they finally put us in the mix of what we think we look like today. So excited about that. We have to, it may be a sole source deal, but we have to, obviously through procurement, I think it is worth, I know people would say, well, use a consultant, it's going to cost money. I think this will be money well spent on this one. And I don't see us having to use consultants in the future, but I think this will be money well spent. And by the way, it's coming in at under 100,000, so it's not a large, you know, kind of $1 million consulting, nothing like that at all. We couldn't afford that, but it's what we can afford. That I think we'll get the job done, but we'll see. You know, it's wishful thinking, but we'll see.
And when do you think the data will be presented? Next year?
Well, what they are proposing in their scope of work, and I'll make sure, Dr. Odom, you can see the scope. Did we send you the scope of what we were asking the company to look at? Okay, I'll make sure we send that to you. Let me make a note of that. And their strategy, which I liked, was to immediately meet with a group of no more than about 45 faculty in this mix. So they wanted to meet with kind of our thought leaders within the faculty ranks that are obviously faculty senate and other areas, because they have a few things that they have to investigate. And I suspect it is to answer obviously some questions about not to restart the academic reorg or beat it up. That's not what the exercise is from where they described it. It's really for them to get all the variables in place that they're going to need to pull the information and kind of profile where we came from to where we are today and where we think we're going tomorrow. So they want to do that with a heavier, obviously, faculty group, not meeting with a bunch of administrators on that. Which I agree. I think it's just going to be better if we handle it that way. But they would lead that up. So I'm thinking, Joe, if we can get them on the ground, we thought here in the latter part of May and in June, and only to get our data together, all of the data, because I know faculty folks will not be here. But it gives them a chance to kind of get all of that worked out in the summer. And then we would come back in the early fall. As soon as we get back, we would then begin that on-ground work with faculty and the like. So to give them time to open up the books and see what we've done over the last 3 or so years, they'll need that time to kind of get all that built up and set up before they can actually get in front of faculty, which would be in August. So I think we're probably looking at that kind of a time frame.
That sounds very reasonable. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question following up on that, because Lisa is here. Probably you can answer me directly. So we have new schools have been proved and been like in place for quite some time. So how many of them have operating papers in place? The reason I'm asking, first of all, I mean, governance committee. Secondly, is because if we hire new faculty, right? When they interview faculty candidates, normally we'll give them an operating paper, say, okay, this is the expectations for your performance. That's something I think is important, where chancellor organized the evaluation. We need to have operating papers in place. So the current faculty will have something to follow up, and also much more importantly is for the new hire. We need to present them something, document, so they can see what our expectations, not only through our words, more in written. So that's important. So do we have any already approved?
So a couple of comments on that. I do want to spin the clock back for some of us that have been on this campus for a while. When we first voted in the FA, we were all required to redo our operating papers. So this is not the first pony ride. In fact, I was a relatively new faculty member, and the first meeting I went to for the new operating paper was with 2 tenured faculty. So there were 3 of us, and the 2 of them just started yelling at each other. And so my assessment at that point is that I would be the chair of that committee because I wasn't yelling at anybody. And so what we found there is we put our operating paper together, and it got passed with the full support of our faculty in the Department of Civil Engineering. And it went forward, but there was some administrative objections to something we had done, and it got sent back. So we changed it, and then it barely passed. And the change was not what drove the change in the vote. I've never understood that to this day, because we are faculty, right? Now going into more current time, the new contract, the new FA contract gives some real specific guidelines in terms of the timeline and the content of the operating paper. That's been refined. Now that really does go to Dave's side of the house, but we consult with each other fairly regularly, and I do not know of an operating paper that has been passed yet. That doesn't mean there hasn't been one, but to my knowledge, there isn't. That folks are still working on it. They have that period of time. Does anyone remember from the contract? Is it 8 months, 1 year, something in there? It specifies when that should be done.
Is that the new bargaining agreement that just got ratified?
Yes, sir. And there was some element in the old one too that gave that specified time period, Joe.
Okay.
But I'd have to go back and grab it, but recognizing that, we're nearing that end with some. And I also want to emphasize that, program integrity and discipline specific integrity has always been something that we've tried to protect. And so the disciplinary criteria you have for advancing a faculty member through tenure and promotion should still be there. If nothing else, if the last time when the FA came to campus was the last time we all looked at our operating papers, in a way it's kind of high time we did that anyway. We all know our operating papers had elements that were archaic, wrong, nonsensical, listing of journal articles for journals that are no longer relevant in our field. Don't incorporate some of the newer, more interdisciplinary e-journals, things along that line. But you're faculty, I don't need to go down that line with you. So this really is an opportunity for us to do that work anyway. And so your idea of having some best practice, some best templates, folks, that's a faculty-driven initiative that I applaud you for doing. That's not something that could really come from Anthony Hall.
Okay.
But I would say that, like, for instance, like we had the same experience with the proving revised operating paper. But the things like the old operating paper still hold. We have a guideline, right? Although the new ones may not be proved, may be delayed. This is different from now we have new school. And then if the operating paper is not there, we don't have any, that will be a problematic. That's what I would say, what do we do? Because we obviously when they have new hire, we cannot ask them to say, using the old operating paper. For instance, if the department transferred into entirely a new school, that's something
I understand.
So that's something.
We've hired 3 people without an operating paper in the last 2 years in SBS.
How did you do that? And
So
when it comes to tenure promotion, that's something, an issue, I would say.
So,
I don't-
yeah. So for tenure and promotion, for those that are coming up now, they're being allowed to use their departments. their
What they
old
came in
departments.
on.
Yeah, and I think for the new faculty, what they're saying, and don't quote me on this, right? Because I was not part of those committees. But they're, coming into the program that they're being hired from, that is the operating paper. The old operating paper is what is, I think, are the guidelines that are being used for that. And my question actually, Lizette, is if there are guidelines in the FA contracts for how long it's supposed to take us to do these operating papers, like for example, SBS has had 2 years without one. Like I feel like we've violated that, right? But there's been no one has said anything to us that I mean, maybe to our director, and he's not relayed that to the faculty. That's a possibility, but I have heard nothing, absolutely nothing.
I can look into that for you, Bethany, and get back to you. But because of the period of time of probation till you go up for tenure and promotion, the idea is you get to, if there was, when the new operating paper comes in, a faculty member would have a choice of which one to go with for going up for promotion. But to my knowledge, we're still in the earlier stages where tenure and promotion has not in any way been negatively impacted. And I might state that all of us understand the criteria for tenure and promotion. Sometimes it's the process that we go through that gets challenged, not our integrity of understanding our discipline-specific criteria for excellence.
And you can only
I think
read.
the issues. I think the issue is going to come in when, not in the big things, right, but the little things where there are differences between schools and how schools handle things, like
yes, I understand.
TA lines or things like that may have a really big impact. So I think those are the areas where having a working paper for the school is just so important.
Yeah,
I take your point.
Yeah, I agree. Because the new faculty will say, oh, they can argue they don't have a clear guideline.
Right.
When it comes to tenure promotion, should they automatically grant for extension of, consideration, all those things could be kind of problematic. Not for the current faculty members, because we can follow the old operating paper.
I think it's also going to be an issue when one of the potential positives of reorganization, we're already starting to see it play out with the RMEs that Bethany and I are working through this year. In years ahead, one of the possibilities is now your tenure home exists in the school rather than your former department. So there's as we grow back our university, and I'm very bullish and optimistic that we're going to be growing back our university. That we're seeing those upticks in enrollment. We're going to be growing back. More hires will then result from that. More opportunities will result to get a transdisciplinary new person in, or a couple new people in, that aren't necessarily, for example, will be School of History and Philosophy. Well, that maybe it's a historical philosopher that is, does intellectual history, that crosses over. There's got a degree in philosophy and a degree in history. I'm not predicting the future, but the possibilities of those kinds of hires that aren't in. So then, what operating paper do they follow if they're not easily classifiable under the old department structure? Because we're not putting tenure there anymore. We're putting tenure into school. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just not to pile on here, Lizette, because I think you understand the point. But it's just the imperative nature of having a speedy resolution, reasonable resolution to this operating paper. So that way we have procedures in place. We don't have grievance. We don't have lawsuits coming down the pike because people get denied tenure. It's just, it's good governance, so I just.
I think what the EC we talked about a while ago, and what I think we're going to do moving forward is I'm going to reach out to Ann with the Faculty Association and talk to her about some of the things I know that's in the contract dealing with operating papers. And then I think as the Faculty Senate, we're going to try to come up with some assistance with our units out there, and maybe see if we can come up with some general templates, and then work with the provost office and making sure that people are hitting their deadlines and getting things done, and be there to help answer questions and help to guide as much as possible. And maybe we can find someone that is really good at operating papers and have a workshop we put on or something, just something to help our faculty brethren out there to be able to get this accomplished.
Yeah, I
And
think
motivate them.
this is, yeah, I mean, again, I'm 9 months in and trying to learn and listen and everything else. But to me, this sounds like a very a high priority item that requires maybe a pretty immediate timeline of when it will be done. I kind of heard the term Joe mentioned speedy, and yeah, I'm catching these terms here. So, you know, whatever we need to do to make sure that I'm with Bethany, I feel like, uh-oh, did I pay that bill or am I late? You know, so I think I paid it. So if we're beyond the timeline here, if we're beyond the deadline, I'm real paranoid because.
Well, you just don't want to have, you don't have grievances.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Unintended, you know, consequences here. If we need to do something on our end, please, like Dr. Odom said, let's see how fast we can speed it up. If we're slowing it down or if we need to address it. I've talked to Ann as well, and it has come up in my meeting with her too. So I do want to make sure, and I know I'm sure our folks, Lizette, are working or doing something there, but probably something we need to pause out on and say, we're going to have it done and when, so we're not tardy in our agreements.
Chancellor, I think where you can help us with this, because we were telling stories like I came in 2007 and my unit was still revising their operating paper. We finally got it done 2 years ago and it's been on a desk, you know, because it's dealing with reorg. So I really never had an operating paper from 2007 to now. And so I think what might be helpful, it seriously has gotten the attention of our deans and our directors when at every meeting they have to report to Mira or to you about recruitment and retention numbers. I think what will get attention as well is where you have a report out on where are you with the status of operating papers, so that then you can report even to Faculty Senate and say, okay, I think we have 32 new schools it is, right? You know, who's done, who's in the process, who has a committee, who does not. I think that has gotten attention in a positive way of just helping prioritize this across campus. Because I bring up that example that I experienced to just kind of illustrate that that's not unique on this university. So that's been kind of a part of our culture. And I think to help us kind of shift away from that culture, having deans and directors report monthly, just as they're reporting on recruitment and retention numbers and recruitment and retention efforts, how many postcards you sent or how many, you know, cards you did. I think that this would be a great item to kind of put there because that'll help them prioritize this as well.
Yeah, because there is a process, and because we found out a few years ago in accounting, we had made some operating paper changes, and for some reason they were not filed appropriately in the provost office, and therefore they were not official. And we were following the operating paper changes thinking they had been filed because they have to go up through your college to the provost office and have to be filed and have a date on them and be in the office. And we had to revert back to a 10-year-old operating paper, which changed some of the policies and procedures we were trying to follow. And it was not easy. So there is a policy and procedures for this to happen. And we just need to make sure that we have those available for faculty out there to know what they are. And then we need to help them, and then hopefully you can hold them accountable from your side of the house, and we will make sure these try to get done within a reasonable time frame.
So Marcus, I'm seeing another Gantt chart.
Just what we need.
I have so many Gantt charts on my computer. Okay, where are we in these processes? But you know, it's really helpful when we're looking at them.
They are.
I can pull that out.
They are.
Yep.
So it's on the agenda. We'll put it on our cabinet and leadership council agenda where the deans all sit, and just send a note to Mira and others. So we'll get better, but that's very helpful. But it sounds like it's something that needs to be a high priority. So
yeah, thank you for that. It just sounds like it's the next step. You know,
yeah, it does.
We're reorg. You're bringing in your consultant. We're reorging. We're done with reorg. Now let's get, you know, we're hopefully going to stay with our reorg for a while. We're not going to do this again because this was this was hard, a lot amount of effort the last several years. But now, how do we get ourselves to become a well-governed university at all levels? And I think, I think that again, that's in everybody's best interest.
Well, since Joe brought up the operating paper things, I'm gonna steal his thunder and say, okay, now let's get the enrollment update.
Thank you,
And
Marcus.
I'm sure that Mira probably provided it to Lizette to give to us. So how are we with enrollment? And before we get to the enrollment update, I'd like to see how we are in replacing John Frost. That was a big loss.
Yeah, so we enrollments, and I always am scared to say this because when it's going too good, you get a little nervous and think, well, something's got to happen bad. But applications still up, admits are up, but that's the easy part. The hard part is between now and August. I've said this before. How do we yield or get a better yield rate on those students? And so I have to applaud a lot of people, faculty and staff. We sent an email out to our faculty and staff because we were tired of hearing that we were not recruiting their kid. And one of them, hopefully you received this email too. If you didn't, we'll send it to you. But we were really wanting to say, look, we want them here, okay? We'll do whatever we need to do to get them here.
It was the first time that email went out in many, many years, by the way.
Oh, I've heard that.
I don't have kids. I'm not a parent, but that went out. But still, I thought that was a very nice touch to that email that you wrote.
Well, we got a lot of response from that. Getting a lot of emails we sent to faculty, staff, and also to alums. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many, in the last week, I've got 3 from my home state of Texas, that we had some alums down there, graduated in 76, has 5 children, and I think we're going to get 2 of them that are going to come here from just that email. She said, you know what, I'm sending my kids to my alma mater because it's email. And little things like that you think don't make a big difference, but apparently they do, and we hope it continues. We'll find out here, but I think people feel like we at least made an attempt, and we'll continue to do it. So our yielding process between now and August is critical, because those students have options and they can go other places. Now, we tend to now work students that are in that, what I consider to be 3.6 to about a 2.75 range. The bulk of our kids are coming in 2.75, 3.2. So that market, for whatever reason, sometimes they wake up today, right, and decide, hey, I'm going to college. I think I'm going to go. Some of that is first generation. Some of it, we don't have our resources together. Not sure how I was ever going to pay for school. So it's no fault of their own. It's just it's like where I was when I was in high school. I couldn't tell you who was going to pay for me to go to school. So they're thinking about it. Our Chicago public school folks told us pretty clearly, don't expect to see our kids yield until really the semester ends. So you're talking about May, June, before the largest population of kids we admit are going to really start to come through. So we have some trips scheduled to Chicago, to those areas, to talk with admitted students. So we're not talking to potential anymore. That ship has sailed. We've got over 6,000 applications, which is really good. That's a lot of interest. But when you look at our yield on there, it's not as good as it should be. So we're trying to improve that with these visits, to take SIU to them and their parents or grandparents and whoever's there. We have some key faculty, depending on the cohort of folks who are the students who are majoring in certain areas. We're going to take some faculty with us, so they can answer some questions that the recruiters just, quite frankly, don't have the expertise to answer. When you get kind of parents in front of you, especially some parents that are already accountants, or, they kind of want to know a little more than just, here's how you sign up for new student orientation. They want a little bit more. And that's not a knock on our recruiters, but I think we'll have an opportunity to really sell the institution and lock them in. Our goal was to go from 11,366 to 12,000. So that's where we are now, is trying to get to 12,000 students. So if we can can do that, that would help. It would really help going forward. So we've not missed a beat in admissions. John did depart. It was a hard blow for us. John did a great job. He was here for 2 years. Was very engaged in making sure that we started to move the needle in some areas, laid a good foundation in the office. We have Amanda, our internal person. Amanda's been here a long time. Actually, Amanda's been here for a lot longer than many of the folks over in that area. She may be the longest term person over there. So Amanda is a genius at operations. Let me tell you, she knows exactly what it takes to get students in, out, through. She knows it all. And so she's going to serve as our interim director in that role. One of the things we're asking Amanda to do is one thing we probably didn't get to do because of the pandemic. It's not because John didn't want to do it, but we have to have a better presence out in the high schools. And I'm not talking about just with recruiters. So I've asked our interim director, and I'll ask our permanent director, if they're here on campus and I see them too many days, they're probably not doing their job. So we need them meeting with principals in the region, in the Southern Illinois region, across the state. We need them meeting with superintendents when I meet with superintendents to really get a checkup on what's going on. We have other directors that are doing that from other schools that have been able to successfully take our students away. So we've kind of left that up to the recruiters instead of having a higher level person really working in with principals and others and building that relationship. So we'll do that. Jen Phillips is the associate director. Jen's from this region. She's kind of homegrown, presents a very nice admissions friendly face to our university as we recruit across this region and across this state. So that's going to be helpful. She primarily looks at the incoming freshman class. So if you've got any questions on what the freshman class looks like, that's her baby. Josie Rawls, Josie is amazing. Let me tell you, if I used to joke with John, I said, as long as you have Josie here, I'm okay, because when we talk transfer, she is the absolute guru when it comes to transfer articulation.
Well, transfers were where we had our big hiccup last year.
There you go.
Because that was the month of COVID starting and lockdowns. So I'm glad to hear that she's figured out, because we've been doing some great open houses on virtually this, at least in COLA. I've been going to several of them this past spring.
Oh, yeah.
So we've figured out something that works because the students are engaged when we talk to them.
I think that is a big piece of it, and we've met with a lot of our community college presidents, and we had to warm a few of them up because I'll be honest with you, they really were not real happy with us, and they weren't pushing us. And so we've got a new president over at Logan. I think he doesn't have that history. I think it's not that Dr. House was against us. I talked to him personally. He was fine. He just gave us some criticism on what we need to do better. Ren Lake, Dr. Wilkerson, it was very hard cracking that nut. I don't know if you know him or not, but he's a real no nonsense kind of guy. He went to SIU. You would think he'd cut us some slack, but he was really upset because of a visit. He came on one time here and they didn't treat him with a lot of respect. So trying to clean that up with him. Shawnee's president down there. We've got a partnership that we're establishing. You can't say this yet, with Harper College. Harper up in that area has got about 35,000 students. President, we talked to her last week. They have a university center on their campus that only has DePaul and NIU, and I think Roosevelt is there. They want us to be the other 4-year partner. We would have office space, storefront right in their university center to offer some very niche academic programs that are not being offered by DePaul and the other schools. And we have some great programs we can stand up there. So we'll have access not only to Harper students that may help us uptick in the transfer enrollment. We'll have access to the folks that live in that 100 mile radius of Harper. There are a lot of community colleges around there as well. So we think this is going to be a great partnership we hope to have in place by fall. So we're working on that now. It's going to be a big piece. So a lot of efforts with enrollment, a lot of movement there. But the final thing, Bethany, I promise I'll get you the Associate Chancellor for Enrollment Management we're in the interview process as we speak. And that will be the person that obviously has the watchful eye over admissions, registrar, financial aid. We'll turn it into a true enrollment management division, not kind of piece it away. So that means we're pulling that out of the provost area. Not a negative thing. It's just how it aligns at most four-year universities. And we actually will have it
Will that
outside
person
of
be
that.
invited to come to faculty Senate meetings? Because I will ask the question every month. I'll
So
change
this is the beauty of it. So you'll have someone who has been doing enrollment management most of their career
right.
that will get a lot more technical than even I'm giving you today about enrollment management because they'll have that background. You probably had some of that in Jennifer DeHamers. She may have been an enrollment.
Absolutely. I enjoyed
person.
talking to her for years about this. Even before I was in Faculty Senate, I would send her
Yeah.
emails. How are we doing with our enrollment? Or during the open houses, I would say, how are we doing? Why are things the way they are, and how can we improve it? Exactly.
Yep. So that person's reporting to me. So I will have them, that's the shuffle or shift out of academic affairs. Obviously, everybody's going to be partnering, but I'll have that person reporting directly to me. You'll have access to them. They'll be talking about from a 30,000-foot view of what it is. Bethany, you were trying to get in there, though. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're fine. I just had a quick and probably silly question. So I grew up in Northern Illinois, went to high school in Northern Illinois, probably not an area that you're actively recruiting based just on several different factors. However, I've been interested in going back to my old high school and talking with students both about SIU and research at SIU, but also women in science and to try and inspire students to come here or, pursue their science goals or whatever their goals are. But I was wondering, is there a pathway for me to do this as an active recruiting tool at my former high school? Is there a way that I can get involved in some small way in that process?
Yes, great question. Yes, and we have some doing it now. So here's how it would work. This is the enrollment management hat on. So I would take you out 2 times. One would be in the fall when we're recruiting the incoming freshman class for the next fall, just to talk about interest, what students that have applied may be interested in, right? That will be our first meeting in fall. Spring, now you would go out with me to your high school in an area where we have a pretty significant number of applications of admits. So an example, tomorrow night, we will be in St. Louis doing exactly what I'm describing. We will be there with all the admitted students from a pretty large radius of St. Louis and some of Metro East over there. And we're meeting them on site. We have some alums that will be there from the St. Louis area because we want them talking about their experience at SIU, and they want to. It's part of the Recruiter Saluki that we have the alumni helping us with. And then we have I forget which faculty members are going with us, but it's based on that radius of how many are interested in certain areas. And so we're not at the high school because some are kind of opening, but we're trying to catch a larger portion of admitted students that are actually, we're going to have their full and undivided attention. So in your neck of the woods, all we would do is look at your high school, but we would also look in and around your high school. And probably the first meeting could be at your high school because we're trying to draw interest. The second meeting may not be at the high school, but it may be in the area where your high school is that invites other schools to come in so we can kind of kill a couple of birds with one stone just on one trip. So we're trying to grab as many as we can that have been admitted students. So it's in an active pool of potential applicants who really want to be here. And we determine that a couple of factors. Now we're looking at how many students have completed or signed up for new student orientation. that's one factor that tells us, hey, we think they're coming. There's another one with housing contracts. That's another indicator. So it's not enough just to say, yeah, we think they're coming. We've got to know they accepted the Chancellor Scholarship. They accepted the Saluki maroon, the gray, and the white, or whatever we're giving away. They've signed up for new student orientation. They've got a housing contract. They've got to clear like 4 areas before we believe them. And so that's part of what we would do, and you helping us is helping to seal the deal.
So who would I, if I wanted to be part of that, who would I contact?
Me.
All right.
You already did.
Yeah, done it.
Okay.
That's what I thought you were doing.
Directly to, well, I was in one
You don't
part,
have to
but
go
if-
through any red tape. Just come right. You already told me. I've got you tagged now. You're probably
Okay.
avoiding my calls. But hey, Bethany, you remember you told me you want to go to back to your hometown? Well, guess
if I
what?
know other faculty that are
I
interested.
really appreciate that because, even in the email you sent out, you said, here's my email address and please contact me. And that is so personal to the students and to the faculty and to the staff and to everybody. It makes it so much more personal. I really do appreciate that. And want to say thank you for that. This just really is something that is different than what they've seen before. I appreciate that.
No, thank you. I said this, the faculty, that's why I'm saying catch me directly, because you close the deal for us. When I'm sitting next to a parent, I guarantee you're going to out talk me about your area more than I ever could. I'm going to window dress it, but you're going to give the real facts. The students actually are going to tune in when you start talking. Me, they know I kind of have.
Plus, you have that local credibility that you're
Yeah.
going to sell the deal that way as well, because you're from that area.
You're from there. They know, they'll know you went there. We had that happen in a recruiting trip to New Orleans at a very prominent high school. And we utilized a foundation member, Oy Craddock, on the foundation board. He went to school there, and we left that meeting. We had 0 apps. Okay. When we left that meeting, we came back. We had like 6 or 7 already applying and wanting to come here, just because of him giving us the credibility to be in that high school. So that's why it's important for you to go.
Well, I appreciate all that. And I think we've come a long ways in the last year with a lot of that credibility issues. And I will say, I really appreciated when John was here. John used to always say when he did his meetings, I'm not planning on leaving, but what I want to do is make sure when I do leave, it's not me. It's what's set up around me and what everybody's doing so that I can walk away and the job will continue and continue well. And I think he was able to do that. And it sounds like the team is continuing with what he did. So that's good to hear. Grant, you have something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a related question, but in terms of retention. And that is, what are the discussions currently in terms of support structures that we're going to have for students? The context that I asked that question is in my former department, the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, we used to have a university-wide course called CI 212, Reading College Texts. And that was a course designed for students who came in with a low ACT score, who needed support in kind of transitioning to academic life. I realize, of course, we're changing our structure about, requiring standardized tests, and I fully support and agree with that. But at the same time, we need to support our students. In the past, we would offer a max of 25 students per section, and we were up of around 22 sections in the fall of offering that course. So we had a large number of students who, qualified and needed that support. And I believe the previous coordinators were able to show that that course did have a positive impact on helping students transition into, academic reading, academic writing, and so forth. So I'm curious about, like you had mentioned, and I hadn't thought about this, but you had mentioned earlier, a lot of our students kind of, in that range of like a 2.75, coming in with a GPA, and that's fantastic. So what are the conversations? Because I feel that it's criminal to accept students when we're not going to support them and they're going to, flunk out or what have you. Not that anybody's going to do that by intentional design, but what are the support structures that we're discussing or having conversations around as we're making this transition?
So a couple of things there, and it's very important. That's why the listening and learning tour, I think the timing is perfect. We've done a lot of different great things in a lot of different areas, but it's never been in a focused, strategic, prioritized way. If that, it's, kind of the garbage can model, So that first pillar, it seems as if it's going to be student success and engagement. When you think of those 5 areas we're going to focus on, that's going to be one of them. Okay. And so as we build our priorities in terms of what we're doing now and how that's going to relate to students, as you mentioned, Grant, that may be coming in with some deficiencies or transitional issues, then we've got to look at some things that are in place now. So a couple of things, advising. We've got to look at our summer program that we're standing up this summer for students that are below 2.75 and getting into the Summer Future Scholars Program. Our exploratory program that Jeff McGoy operates in terms of those undecided students that are in there and how we get them there. Our University 101 success course, you know, what are we actually hoping it does? We've got some areas on this tour that said, hey, no offense, but we could do a better job if we had our own University 101, and some do, right? So we've got kind of a mix. This thought about the first year experience, you know, do we really have one here like maybe most institutions? And if so, how does it work? Is it intrusive, developmental? You know, what students, are they required? Is it mandatory? So we've got a few things out there now that I think, you know, we're going to be able to mesh into a priority of, okay, here's what we're all focused on moving together in terms of being able to assess its effectiveness and how we onboard students in, not academic, but even in our student life environments. We're talking about, there's a pretty popular camp at A&M called Fish Camp. And here, you know, we're talking about what we do to acclimate students to the student life environment or to the university. You know, how do we do that beyond just the living and learning communities, but, you know, how do we really indoctrinate them? So the timing is right. I don't have an answer for you on paper, but if you can think about the things I threw out there that could be included in this support system for students, because I think what you're really getting at is what I worry about a little bit, is that even though we went away, I know, from the SAT and the ACT, there's still this monitoring of, okay, are students going to be supported enough then if we're not accepting that, right? So, you know, that's great. Yeah, we don't have it anymore. All right. But, you know, there's still, how do you read? How do you manage your time? How many hours?
And it strikes me we're at a very crucial inflection point for this, because we just went through academic reorg. And so, and we're going to be approving a school. I think we're going to be approving a school next week. You know, School of Africana Multicultural Studies is finally going through. Looks like it's got buy-in, which is going to have more of a service mission, you know, than compared to other schools that we've approved. So you think about curricular changes. I've long been an advocate of a really robust first year experience. I've seen data at other universities that have, you know, this involves freshman year seminar courses that all freshmen take that are taught in a multidisciplinary, exploratory kind of way. And I've seen data that says you get freshman to sophomore retention rates of over 90%. The universities, college and universities that have that approach. We have a different approach, which may also have robust data. I don't know, but you know, we haven't looked at in the past having that. I guess we've looked at living and learning groups. We've done that. We've done, you know, freshman comp class put together with another class. We've done that before. We've done First Saluki Center. You know, they've done some great work in recent years. But having more of an integrated approach probably gets to what Grant is asking.
Yeah, that is the difference. And that's
we have all these components, but we don't have an integrated approach.
Yeah, like I said, I applaud everyone here because I know what they did. They were trying to, some cases, put out fires. They were trying to introduce things that could stop the flow of students leaving. I mean, they were trying it all. And so that's why I didn't dismiss any of it. It was,
and even UConn, even the
bring it together now.
Right, the university course, which I'm happy to say that I'm going to be doing this fall. They invited me, my college invited me to teach one of them, and I'm really happy about it. But that was that we didn't have anything at all before that.
Yeah.
We admitted people back in 2007 when when I arrived in 2007, we admitted people we knew wouldn't be here sophomore year.
Mhm.
We over admitted. That 22,000 that we were was probably overinflated back then because we were admitting people and then we weren't giving them support service for sport. You know, we weren't giving them that first Saluki experience. We got flagged in the 2010, you know, Higher Learning Commission report. We didn't have a first generation center on campus. And then we instituted that. Beth, I'm sorry, was that you were gonna?
Yeah, I just wanted to tap in while, yeah, we had this type of thinking power
Mhm.
at the table. Grant, you were mentioning about curriculum instructions having a program. And what I think I heard you say, that without the requirement of the ACT, SAT, you don't have a metric for knowing whether or not those students should be in that class. And I think a data dive, and because is it primarily a writing class, if I heard you?
No, the class is called Reading College Texts. So it's really kind of helping students understand, you know, analyzing text, because, you know, they're maybe transitioning from raw, bare bones comprehension of text to now actually corroborating sources, evaluating the trustworthiness of sources, which is Joe and I's area, or, you know, so those kind of aspects of just truly engaging with college level texts.
Or there's no
requirement of all students as opposed to students that you think might be below the bar.
That's a good.
But if you really interesting a metric. You've got your English
approach.
Whatever their grades were in high school in English, their GPA, their total GPA could be a marker. You could wait and do it the second semester and see how well they do in English 101. So if they get a C or below, you get them into that class right away. So yeah, if you're looking for markers, we still have them. We just have to approach it differently.
Yeah, and it goes beyond what Grant and I do. I'm a historian. Grant, you know, does historical education. You know, so we see this obviously in our bailiwick, of course, you know, reading, interpreting evidence, that's what we do. But I would think it would be relevant to what Li Cheng does, you know, being able to read data, you know, what is chemical data, being able to understand the data, you know, be able to understand a lab report. I think, you know, this is everything we do in university. It ties
I
to course.
understand. And one of the new math courses coming in is going to be about understanding data as opposed to some of the other approaches we have, and that would go for the core.
Yes, I think
we're not flunking students out because they can't pass a
literacy.
I consider rudimentary math.
Right. So a literacy and numeracy, right? You know, being able, they can do college level numeracy. Can they do college level literacy? Those are two.
Yeah, data analysis.
Data analysis, right? This is what the university does. You know, we expect our students.
But I commend the systems approach to this, because as an example in the past, you know, we had this whatever, Digital Dogs, or where everyone got the laptop as freshmen, right? Which was, you know, a cool, interesting idea. But from my perspective of thinking about universal design for learning and other ways to make curricula more accessible, these things that we were giving students had zero accessibility features. You could have easily gotten a device that had like text to speech, where students could listen to their sources, because the goal is for them to, you know, like maybe corroborate sources, not just barely, you know, not just read it. So there were these missed opportunities where there wasn't a systems approach. There was this cool thing, we'll give freshmen laptops, or there was this cool thing where we'll have this course. Yeah. There was this. So I commend you on, it's a really complex puzzle, I realize. So I commend the administration for thinking about this with a systems approach.
Yeah, it's not a PR grab.
No.
It's a lot of work. I mean, it really is a lot of, we got to sit down, we've got to talk it through, we got to structurally understand it and keep those pieces that did work, look at the data. It's a lot of work. And so I think, like I said, the pieces are scattered around here. We've just got to put them together and then say, okay, I think that's where we want to go, and measure it. And
I think we've been putting out a lot of fires the last decade. This is why the pieces.
Yeah, that's all that's happened. We've been all good intentions. I mean, people have worked like crazy.
And we're all frustrated that we've dropped almost 45% in enrollment over the last decade. So everybody's like, how do we change that? How do we stop that bleeding? And so we put, let's create this, let's create this, let's create this, let's create that. And now, as I said, reorg is an inflection point. We now can think about curriculum-wide things we might want to do on this university. That, again, it's also a branding thing too. So there is a marketing and PR thing.
Marketing now.
It is to some degree, because it's like you go to SIU is going to have not only a school structure, but here's why we have the school structure, academically speaking. We are here, we're supporting our students. This is what we are doing. This is our commitment to you. You send I'm sounding like an ad man all of a sudden here. The advertisements in my head, but this is our commitment to your student. Your son and daughter is going to come here, and this is what they're going to get.
Yeah, and it's got to happen from your feedback. It's not like some places, the administration is not going to drive all this. It can't.
No,
we just can't. I'm just being honest with you. So the feedback, it's kind of like you heard with Bethany and others, we've got to keep getting the feedback, even if it's not something we don't want to hear. I get it. We get our feelings hurt, but it's very helpful because it's going to be a lot of heavy lifting over the next few years to get this stuff off the ground. And we don't need anybody taking it personal. It's just, it is what it is. We've got to grow and develop in some more areas that I think are going to help us in the long run.
If I want to provide another example, I think the faculty involvement in this, like attracting students, is very important. Like for instance, like our department just secured a student who has like chancellor's scholarship, Ela Jones. First of all, Patrick sent me email once he reviewed this. Oh, this is a student you need to get hold to. So finally, he had pinned down the 3 finalists, SIUC, WashU at St. Louis, and also University of Utah. So he visited us twice on campus. So we spent our faculty spent hours showing him the lab and everything. And the last Thursday, he chose us. He said he tried to talk to Utah, tried to talk to WashU faculty, none of them want, like basically they just like, so he didn't have a chance to talk to faculty, didn't learn anything. So that's why he chose us. So that's one of the cases. We're very happy, we're very excited. And that will be, so it's very important for faculty to get involved, faculty who is willing to spend time, 2 hours or 3 hours showing the labs and then introduce student to something he's interested in. So that's something I think is important.
Yeah, and right now, as a matter of fact, Thursday night, we're doing a School of Accountancy showcase for all of our admitted students for the fall. And worked with the registrar's office to get it set up, and or the registration or enrollment office to get it set up. And it's pretty simple. They send out the invite. They're setting up the all the thing. I just set up the Zoom link, and so it's a chance for them to see faculty, and that's what the students want to see. I agree, Lee-Chang.
Yeah, Cole has been doing this every month since January. I've been attending every month along with a couple other Dougs in COLA. And, last month we had no history majors there, but I talked to a couple musical theater people and some, but the point is, they're hearing faculty, even if they're not hearing faculty in their major, they're still hearing faculty and meeting with them in the pandemic. And I guess the other piece about enrollment really quickly is, are we hearing things on the doorstep about what, student preference for face-to-face learning still?
Oh my gosh, are we?
Because that was a big concern last year, I think, wasn't it? We were trying to navigate this really tricky space, right, where we had to be safe, and at the same time, our incoming freshmen wanted to be in-person classes as much as they possible.
Yeah, I never say anything's 100%, but I will tell you from what I'm hearing, it's about 98%, 99%, especially now with the vaccinations being so readily available. I was with a group of 25 students in the pavilion this time yesterday. All had been vaccinated.
Okay.
All of them. And every group I meet with or hear from or parent has emailed me has always been about, we're glad they're coming back because I was not going to send them. So it's still that way. There is a strong desire to be in person. And I think that the vaccinations help push that over the top, because we originally thought students weren't going to be in that mix until July.
Right.
Right. So we were a little worried, but I mean, they're getting it. And
Do we have any plans as a university of requiring vaccination of incoming students?
that's my home state in Rutgers. No, I mean, Rutgers is going to get it for that. I don't know what they were thinking.
That's why I asked it.
Rutgers is not private, by the way. Some people,
No, they're not. They're just-
no, they're not private. They're very public.
I'm a fellow East Coast boy. I know Rutgers very well.
Yeah, you know Rutgers.
Yeah.
And they jumped out there, and we had that on the president's call the other day with all the folks in the state, and we kind of chuckled. We said, good luck to that guy. You know, he's going to get there's a real anti-vaccination group out there. I don't know if you ever run into them before. I have. And so, you know, you got to be careful when you start mandating it. You know, we'll have enough vaccinated, I think, here among faculty, staff, and students. Or even if someone was not, you know, if you still keep some masking up, I mean, I think we're going to be okay. But no, we are not out there on the required piece.
Okay,
like
good, good. I just wanted to clarify that because, as I said, you hear those news reports, and
yeah, we heard that one, and we heard from a few folks about how we better not ever think of doing that too. I get some emails that get sometimes. I think, man, okay, calm down. You know, it's your choice. I'm not forcing you to do anything. You know.
I hate to reel this back in, but I know this group, they could continue conversations and because it's a committed group for forever, but we do appreciate y'all showing up and being here to help keep us informed. Being transparent, it's key. And I think that's something else that's been very appreciated this year. And so thank you, both of you, for being here today.
Thank all of you. Appreciate it. And have a great week. I do appreciate the dialogue. The more we can do this, it's very helpful. And Lizette, thank you, Lizette, for filling in there.
Well, you're going to have my back because I did not go down my boss's talking points.
Oh, I got you.
I have to say that I at least added value.
I got you back.
Thank you.
Only because I think it went okay.
Dr. Ellis was
terrible.
I mean, I think from the listening and learning tours that you've done the last year, I think a lot of it is just showing, right? It's like we don't believe it until we see it as faculty. And so what I'm just going to say, I mean, I've only been on the faculty senate this first year, so I'm brand new, like you, Chancellor Lane, to the faculty senate.
Wow.
And you know, I was a rank and file, very actively engaged rank and file member before then, but I never got elected up to this past year. What I'm seeing this past year is just a willingness to problem solve. That is really remarkable, but you don't, that doesn't diffuse out there to the rank and file faculty. I think the rank and file faculty out there see problems that have been festering for years, multiple years, perhaps even decades on this campus that are never solved. And in this past year, I can at least get a window into no, we're actually rolling our sleeves up together and trying to solve problems.
Yeah.
It takes time for it to filter down. It really does. I agree.
That will change the mood on this campus in a positive direction once that gets more widely understood.
Do you have can I have 2 minutes?
Sure.
Well, on that, just 2 minutes.
I told you that we could go forever. I don't want to take a good time.
But I want to go back to something I heard on the tour. Because it kept me up at night because of what Joe just mentioned, long-term problems, you know, and okay, you're new, what else is new? We heard this before. So we are instituting, for accountability purposes, we're instituting unit effectiveness plans for the administrative team, cabinet, deans, and that unit effectiveness plan ties to those top 5 priorities that we'll come up with. And each unit will be tying themselves in one of those 5 areas and giving us their methods of assessment, or their goals, their objectives, their methods of assessment, and their targets, right? And their action steps, most important piece. And that information will be kept in a repository through our institutional effectiveness office. It will become our annual cycle of effectiveness. So everything that these units, everything that you told me on the tour, when I work with my direct reports, I'm listening to make sure and watching their document to see if they are capturing those things that have been hanging around here forever. And when are we going to see some movement on it? I'm expecting them to to be working on that throughout the full academic year. And then every year, not this state of the university, but I'll come back every year and I'll basically be taking things out of their UEPs to highlight if we're getting better or not, right? So this will become our accountability document, for lack of for the leaders that's here, to make sure these things don't die out and it's just sitting in a plan somewhere on a shelf. So wanted to throw that in. You'll probably start to hear about this. What's he doing with his UEP, trying to create a culture of assessing? What do we do? It's the UEP process that I'm introducing for us to roll out. Some pockets, it's in some areas, but this will tie it now to our top priority.
But a lot of us already have a culture of assessment, so this is very welcome.
Yes, yeah, this will
Just to have it, because as I said, Grant and I deal with this. Grant even more so because he deals with it on these. You know, to have every history educator get a license at the end of 4 years. I mean, there's a major assessment process for that, right?
Yep.
And there has to be, right? So we have assessment cultures on this campus, so it's very welcome that we're just adding another one. I like that.
Keeps us accountable, keeps me accountable to what I'm talking to you about right now. So it's just a living document or exercise that folks will be going through and working on. So I just want to throw that out there, but I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else we need to discuss, EC? I'm open to hearing for an adjournment if you. All right. Well, again, we thank you all. We thank visitors, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.